Okay, I think we are ready to get started. So I will put this away and welcome you. Thanks for being here. Um, if you missed last time, you really should hear it, don't you think? It didn't really get good till about half an hour in, but I had such a good time last time. I had such a good time that I think, yeah, I was so inspired that I just wanted to tell you guys that I'm gonna pull it together into a book, like some of some of what we did in the first year, like when we talked all about things about the soul and how to listen to the soul. I just think I'm going to try to do that. So, in keeping with today's topic of speech acts, I wanted to tell you that.
Small class. I want to move over.
Yeah, yeah. So I think I decided to do the. Well, it was always on the docket to talk about speech acts because it seemed like language was really important to everything about being human. And how we use language is a particular tool that we can use for all kinds of things. But in particular, in the context, we were talking about warrior energy. I even have trouble saying it, warrior energy. And a little bit from last time, I had discovered that part of the reason why I had difficulty sort of owning or feeling the fullness of warrior energy over the years is that most of the models that are used to teach it are either war models, obviously, or otherwise masculine models, which isn't wrong or bad or anything, because warrior energy definitely is needed in the world to stand up for things, to resist, to press in, to protect, to implement, to get things done. All of those things are really important. That's kind of the essence of warrior energy. And none of those are strengths of mine anyway. But it just would leave me feeling kind of like, I don't quite know how to get my arms around it like I do some of the other energies that we've been talking about. So, but then I remembered language and how powerful language is. And it just brought up this whole body of learning, this whole school of learning that I encountered in my coaching program, and have used in my practice. And we're not used to thinking along these lines, but really language is something we use all the time. So I wanted to just introduce you guys to that because and just see what kind of conversations we start to have today on it. So it's in the context of warrior, and then it's also under the heading of, I was thinking about those 4 agreements, whose book I've never read, but I love them so much, and I can't remember like 2 of them, but but this is kind of how I am. But one of them is be impeccable with your word. Which kind of speaks to integrity and honesty and all those kinds of things, but it really does hint at the whole idea of how powerful speech is and how powerful language is. And so all of that for context. Well, that's the end of the introduction. So the first thing this is all under the category of the philosophy of language. And I was so fascinated when I went to my coaching program, which is the New Field Network, which is based in Boulder. But it's based on the philosophy of language. And the idea is that everything that you need to know about life, the universe, and everything basically can be understood and implemented if you understand language and how we use language to facilitate being human beings and make community and have relationships with ourselves and stuff. And um, so I just thought it was really fascinating that there are really only 6 speech acts. So 6 categories of speech acts. And I will write them down. I haven't had enough coffee, so I might have to look at this. So we have, and some of these I've talked about here: assertions and assessments. Which is really, it's really powerful, and it kind of changed my life, this whole thing about assertions and assessments. An assertion is, do you remember? Oops. Assertion is basically a fact. It's something that you're putting forth as a truth, or, and an assertion, you have to have some kind of independent backup for what you're saying. So it could be verified. That's not right. Verifiable. It needs to be verifiable. So I need to be able to, look it up somewhere. It's documented somewhere if I'm going to make an assertion. And just the facts, ma'am, basically. But an assessment is then an interpretation or a judgment about a set of assertions, basically. So it's really important that we understand that these two things, because a lot of people have them so collapsed that we don't stop and go, now, is that true or is that not true? And a lot of the judgments that we make get thrown out there as facts when really they're just grounded, hopefully grounded, some kind of grounded judgment. So a fact can be verifiable, but an assessment needs to be grounded or ungrounded. Joe Blow is a jerk. That might be grounded, or it might be ungrounded. And in particular, social media these days are collapsing these things, and the kind of judgments that are flying around that are grounded perhaps by a group of people versus another group of people, or something. Anyway, you know that. Okay, the third speech act is requests. And the fourth is promises. The fifth is offers. And the sixth is declarations. We're mostly going to be talking about declarations today. But all of these are really powerful. And most of these we don't know how to do very well. So making requests, just coming straight out and asking somebody for something, and to do it competently. Would you please, in 2 weeks, make sure you get me this with this, blah, blah, blah. So some of these are just very obvious, but when you kind of dive into them and you realize how bad we are at them. So one of my pet peeves around requests is people who don't ask for things. But I can feel that they want something from me. So you can feel that going on, but they just won't come up right out and do it. Or these underhanded kind of requests, like, I sure wish I wasn't sitting here alone. Or, gosh, I wish that I could go. So, I hate those kinds of things. They're just underhanded, and there's something clean and honest and powerful about actually making a request. The problem with it is that it makes us feel vulnerable, so we like to hedge it. We like to not just put it out there. Promises is another one, mostly just because I'm gonna at some point start counting all the times you hear, either in a TV show or a movie, nothing bad is going to happen to me, I promise. Or it's all going to be okay, I promise. or I'll be right back, I promise. That's like the signal for something bad is about to happen, right? Right? So promises need to be made, and when promises are don't have integrity behind them, or when they don't have any kind of real intention, or when the person speaking a promise is making a promise, but they're making a promise for a reason that benefits them and not the person they're promising to, then we just lose complete faith and trust in them. So part of what we're suffering from today is this misuse of speech acts. When these acts get disconnected from any sort of truth or any sort of impeccability, then we lose trust in the communicator, and we lose trust in our connections with other people. So it begins to kind of fray at the fabric of who we are as a community or family or a group or a nation. So these promises, I think most everyone is suspicious of political campaign promises, right? That is the most egregious, I think, misuse of it. Because instead of saying, here's my sincere intention, and I hope that we get to do that if we're elected, it's more like, I promise you, and then all these really stupid, outrageous things in order to connect with the hearer and make them think that this person is on their side so that they can vote for this person. So it really does erode the kind of currency that we use together as a community when these things are misused. So an offer then is pretty obvious. I offer to, and it's also powerful, particularly, I'll go back to the sentence that I interrupted myself with. So I offer to give you a ride every Thursday afternoon when you have to go see your therapist or whatever. That's something that you decide inside of yourself to give to someone. And offers are really nice, particularly for codependent people, because in some ways, those of us who get hooked into other people's need and issues, we're responding to requests that don't get made. And we're generating activity when we've not been asked, right? And that puts us on the response. So then as people learn about us, that we're very willing to help, and we take initiative to help, and you don't even have to ask, then pretty soon we get we're just responding as if it's expected of us. And then of course we get resentful, right? Because we taught them how to treat us, and then they're treating us that way, then we're mad, right? So a lot of us find ourselves in that situation, and what helps, if you are inclined to be a helper, and you are inclined to really want to, offer who you are, to other people, but you don't want to be used, then thinking of the speech act of an offer is an important pivot that you can make, because you can maybe sniff out that this person needs something or wants something from you, and maybe they ask or maybe they don't, but you probably can sense it. This is what I do anyway. I kind of read their mind. They want something from me. I get pissed off because they're not asking. I start to feel guilty because I should do it. And so I have to sit back and then ask myself, what is it that I'm willing to do that I can then offer? So when you offer something, it's in your purview then. It gives you the power to say, I'm willing to do X, Y, Z. That's my offer. And so the locus of control is inside of your yard. Whereas if you're only responding, then they're the one that's in control. And then you have to come up with another really hard speech act, which is to say the word no. you know? So that's a little more anxiety producing for somebody like me than to be able to go, all right, now what would something be that I could offer that then would get me off the hook to be responding all the time and having to say no or having to judge every time. You know, should I do this? Should I not do this? Yes, no. No, I won't be able to do that. You know, after I've already taught them that they could rely on me to, you know, respond with whatever they wanted. So it's nice to get a jump on that kind of thing if you think through. Then you own and you can sift through your own motivations for doing something, your own, you know, convenience or your own. It's just a better way to kind of go, oh, I guess I have Thursday afternoons and I really do want to support this person and help them. I don't want to run from them every time I hear from them. So I'm going to say, gosh, you know, I can do that. I'd love to do that. And then it calms all these things down in the relationship if you're making an offer. It's a powerful speech act. And of course, all other kinds of offers. So anytime you put up a website, anytime you try to sell something, every time you're trying to sell yourself, you're kind of making an offer. And you can even step back and make this bigger when you're talking about how to be who you are in the world in a more powerful and more authentic way. You can think of yourself as your offer to the world. You know, what is it that I want to offer the world from who I know myself to be and how I can, you know, present that in a way that people will say, oh, that sounds like a good deal. And then the sixth one we're going to talk about today is declarations. And a declaration is just a statement of intent, I think. And actually, most of these are already declarations. So a promise is a declaration. An assessment is a declaration. An assertion is a declaration. A request, maybe not so much. Offer, perhaps. And the power of declarations is what we're mostly going to be talking about today. So I even have a handout. You're supposed to say, wow, that's really good, Phyllis. You have, actually I wasn't. This is a 10-year-old handout I'll be giving you. Okay, so think about declarations that you know, and let's just talk about it for a second. Declarations, or I'll just talk about it. How about?
Was that a declaration?
Yes, I will talk about this. That is a declaration, about declarations. Declarations, let me get my notes, do accomplish 4 things. First of all, declarations do 4 things. First of all, they open or initiate something. We all just went through the Olympics. So at the very beginning of the Olympics, somebody stands up and says, I hereby declare that the blah, blah, blah Olympiad is now open. So it initiates something. And that's pretty clear, I guess. Or it closes something. Close or conclude. This meeting is now adjourned. The end. You know, those kinds of things. The declaration closes. The third thing is that it resolves something. So, for example, it makes a judgment. Sometimes that resolution is a judgment. Like in baseball, safe, out, you know, or in all the sports where we need some kind of resolution of something. You know, there's somebody there with the authority to say, that's out, that's illegal, that's a foul, that's a, that's a goal, and a declaration is the speech act that, that solves that little thing. And the fourth thing that it does is evaluate. Or declares someone worthy, or, like the results of an exam, or like you've met the requirements, or those kinds of things. So it's all just very obvious, right? Seems very, very obvious. So when we're using declarations, we're kind of a declaration is a way to implement an intention. So that's why I like to put it in the warrior realm, because it implements things. And so the mind or the heart or the soul will come up with an idea, with a knowing or some kind of an intention. And then to declare it will open something, close something, assess something, or what was the third thing? I just evaluate. Yeah, resolve or evaluate. Okay, so now there are only just a few kinds of declarations, and everything, all of the declarations that we have kind of fall into these categories. So let me get you the handout. Thank you. You recognize these phrases, right? Yes, no, I don't know. I apologize, I forgive you. Thank you, I love you, I am, and this is not working. What does yes mean? Yes. Sometimes yes means no. Yes and no are pretty obvious, but yes and no basically are decisions. Yes and no declares that you've made a decision, and every decision you make is some kind of declaration. Even if you don't say yes or no, making a decision or not making a decision is somehow a decision, and therefore you're declaring something. You're either declaring it out loud, or you're sort of declaring it by inaction. And so, yes and no. And you can feel it. So one of the things that is really interesting about the speech acts is that you can usually feel the impact of a speech act when it happens, right? So when you're making a request, you're opening something. Will you please? You're making yourself open. And then if someone says yes, then it's moving forward. If someone says no, then it's shutting down. So you can see how it opens or closes. What is it about no that we don't like?
It's a confrontive energy, I think. When somebody says no, it kind of squashes whatever you're wanting the yes was. So if I want to spend time with you and you say no, I feel the impact of that refusal.
Yeah. And you can feel it. It's like an energy exchange. Like part of the thing that language helps us do is connect with other people. And so when you're making an offer or you're making a request and you get a no, you can feel feel the energy of it, like it's the door shutting in your face. So it really does close an opportunity or cut something off. And I think just in general, we kind of don't like that, right? We just want to keep that energy kind of flowing.
I was thinking, conversely, Ted, that it's saying the no part. Like when you said that, my immediate thought is, why do I not like to just say no? Because it cost me a break in relationship, perhaps, if I say no.
Yeah.
So I feel afraid sometimes to say no
Yeah.
for the same reason.
It's
Yeah.
easier to say maybe when you mean no.
Yeah.
How often do I not just say, oh, the answer is no?
Yeah.
Because what I want to say is, well, I would prefer you not. Now I'm back to the offer thing or the request
Request,
that I'm
yeah.
not actually saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would prefer that not happen today versus no, because it costs me relationship. So I don't like to hear it sometimes, but I also don't like to say it.
Yeah, and I think I don't like to, because I think we feel that it's kind of jarring to say no. And so I like my energy to be flowing back and forth, and to just say no kind of puts a jolt into that interchange. Plus, once you declare yourself no, then there may be consequences, like you were talking about. There might be consequences that come to you that you don't like, or that you weren't looking for. So keeping the door open kind of keeps those consequences at bay, or at least we think they do, or we think it does. I had a really interesting offer, I guess, this week that I got this email. I almost want to just read you the emails because, and I feel stupid about it now that I even sort of entertained the idea, but got an email from someone saying, I found your profile online and looking for someone to do coaching, spiritual direction, stress management, and anger management for 3 ladies in my life, or something like that. And can you do that? And I'm hearing impaired, so pardon me for the email. Is that okay? And I'm like, okay, well, most of that's right up my alley. I don't do formal anger management, but I might be able to do that. But can you give me some more information? So back and forth all the time. And each time his answers were very short and cryptic. So I'm like, are these people, what is their relationship to you? Are they in your family? How old are they? Do they even want to be in coaching? And that kind of thing. And he's like, so he goes, my wife and 2 daughters, 26, 28. My wife is, I don't know, I forget. Yes. And I'm like, okay. So he makes these other kinds of things. And then, so I'm like, well, I might be up for it. But he wants twice a week. And he wants, for a month, he wants this coaching for the women, the ladies in his family. So I'm like, I think maybe I could swing that. You want them all together? And then he's like, how much would you charge for that? So I like, you want them all together? Like, I charge this much per hour. So if it's like 8 sessions in a month, it would be this much. But if you're talking about individual, it's going to be that times 3. Okay, so that sounds like a good price to me. Really?
Which one?
Yeah, which one? So then he comes back, and here's where he makes himself obvious. But I'd like you to do a little favor for me. So I would.
Shannon just got
Yeah. Guess what it is? So guess what it is? Tell me. You tell me. What's his offer? What does he want me to do for him? Oh, okay. So you're just as ignorant of scams as I am. But evidently this is a typical one. So he says, I would like to pay you in advance $7,400. $3,000 of that would be for you, and then for your fees, and then but I'm in the hospital. I'm having surgery, and so
lung cancer.
the purpose is that his poor family is so upset about his dying of cancer and all of his surgeries and him being in the hospital that he wants to arrange some coaching for them to help them out. But he's in the hospital and will be, and so he's hired a limousine driver and guardian for all of them, and that this driver will be bringing them to sessions and he doesn't take credit cards.
Really, adult children, and he's saying they need a driver?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that so he's going to overpay me, and then it'll be my responsibility to pay the driver because he doesn't take credit cards. And so I'm like, what? And Ted goes, it's a scam. And then all he has to do is put, in the hospital. What did you put?
I just Googled,
Hearing
lung
impaired,
cancer
yeah.
person wants payment with credit or something like that, and I put the word scam in front because I was pretty sure this is a scam, and bing, it comes the typical
Yeah,
scam.
all of these people.
And yeah,
So, so I'm only saying this because of just to illustrate how hard it is even for me to say no. So, even at first, it was like, what? Some random person. I don't like random people coming to me. I like to say, so-and-so referred me to you. Or, some referral source that I recognize. I don't like strangers just saying, hey, need somebody, need a coach, So I didn't like that. And the fact there's going to be 3 people, I don't like doing counseling. I like one person in my office, one. And occasionally I'll have 2. But I just don't like that. It's too many nervous systems in the room that I'm absorbing is actually what's happening. And so I can handle 1, and it's a nice exchange, and it's a really. But when you get more than 1 or more than 2 in particular, then somebody like me is just like vibrating with all these different nervous systems, and that's just too much for me to handle on purpose, like. So I should have said no right there. What?
Oh, I was just going to say, as a tip about the scams, the way that it works is they have you get supposedly paid via credit, and you think you got paid, and you probably even can verify that you got paid in some way. But then you didn't somehow get paid because they're going to
Reverse the charges or something,
They're going to say
or deny them.
dispute-
Or
somehow you aren't going to get paid.
Well,
But you're
plus
gonna go get
services were
cash
never
and give it to
rendered.
somebody and you're stuck.
Yeah. Yeah, and so then
So paying it all up front.
pay it all up front. So then I'm out $7,400, and I didn't do anything. I didn't earn anything. So if anyone's listening to this on the recording,
Yeah.
don't fall for the hearing impaired guy. But he does it. They do it in all different realms of business, and I was just surprised that they would do it to a poor coach, life coach or therapist. Like,
Trying to do good in the world.
yeah, although
Well,
they're
actually, you're
probably
perfect target
the
because
most
you're in the helping
manipulatable.
industry
Yeah.
and you're asking for help.
Yeah, and you might be starving too, so that idea of ka-ching, ka-ching, in advance. So anyway, so many opportunities to say no. Should have just said, I'm going to pass, try somebody else. But no, I kind of went along, what are the conditions under which I would do this? Well, I need more information. This is weird, so, okay, well, I don't know. I could maybe do 3. I could maybe do 2 sessions a week. Yeah, that would be a little hard to kind of into my schedule, but I could probably do that. And then it was like, I just kept being strung along, even though some part of me was like, no thanks. So that when he finally showed his hand and was like, this is the little favor you want to, what was the first thing I said to you, Ted?
I'm going to ghost him.
I'm going to ghost him. My no that's not a no. So I think that's the chicken's way out, of course, first of all. But I also think that when it comes to being impeccable with your word, if you are impeccable with someone with your word, you are giving them respect. So if you just come right out and say no to someone, it really is a sort of off, a gesture of respect. I'm gonna not leave you out there hanging. I'm gonna put an end to this right now. Yeah, Vanessa.
Well, I was just thinking through this, like you were saying, you could say maybe instead of saying no. I feel like I've done more damage to relationships doing that sort of thing, and for exactly that reason, is you're disrespecting. You're not sure that they can handle you saying no, and so you say, and then they are kind of stringing them along, and
Yeah.
actually no at the end, and it's just kind of like
Yeah.
do it or
Yeah.
disappear.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I feel like that it's enabled me to feel better about saying no, to see the damage I've done, not saying no.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Phyllis was all about ghosting. I was like, let's call the police.
Yeah.
Let's find out if this sounds like a scam to them, and then let's
set up a
let him-
sting
let's take the
operation.
money, and when the limo driver shows up, we'll just happen to have the police there too.
Yeah.
Let's do it like that.
Well, yeah.
I'm all let's fight this guy.
Yeah.
Take him to jail.
Yeah. To which
No,
I
think I'll
said,
just ghost him.
no. I can say no to him. But
She can say no to me.
But it just occurred to me as I was, making my little confession about, my reluctance to say no, that actually I don't want to show respect to that person. I don't want to show respect. And I'm pretty sure he's figured it out by now anyway. It's only, it's been 2 days. If somebody's going to take the bait on $7,400, then they would have taken it already. And so
And he
Eager
probably
to
has
help.
many people.
he's probably
that
got,
he's working.
hundreds of scams going at the same time. So yeah, I kind of wish we could catch this guy, but, So anyway, if you don't respect the person, then don't say no. But if you do respect them, then say no. All right, so let's see. Where are we? And where are my glasses? In my hand. Okay, so yes and no. And I don't know. So I don't know is, well, let's talk about who has teenagers? Do you hear I don't know a lot?
All the time.
Yeah. It doesn't really mean I don't know. What does it really mean?
I just don't want to talk about
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it. I can't, yeah. I mean, that's an honest answer to say I don't know. But a lot of times I don't know gets used for get out of my face. I don't respect you. I don't want to talk about this. Leave me alone. Stop prying into my life. Those kinds of things. But actually, I don't know is a really powerful speech act and declaration because it's one of those that opens. So to say I don't know opens the field for learning, right? And so if you think you know, then you're closing. If you think you know, but you don't, then you have no opportunity to know something. But if you say I don't know, then you're opening the possibility for learning. And this is important there's a thing called beginner's mind. If you ever heard of that, I think it's a Buddhist concept, beginner's mind. To always have the attitude, I don't know, or maybe there's something I don't know about this. It's a thing because it's an attitude toward the world of I don't have to close this down. I can say I don't know everything about this. One of the things that the magician does is it tries to make everything really efficient and to move really smoothly. And so it makes assumptions, our mind makes assumptions about all kinds of things because it wants to keep us running smoothly and not getting caught into like rabbit holes or little forks in the road that may or may not be good for us. So it kind of jumps out in front of every situation, assesses it, puts it in a category of stuff I already know, stuff so-and-so told me, and will only open to certain things if we have an attitude of I would like to know that or I don't know that. And so keeping an open mind and saying to yourself, I don't know about a lot of things, it keeps the realm of possibilities open. One of the things about speech acts and the power that they have in the world is that they really do, I mean, I don't want to say, they're not magical, but they really do cognitive sort of management on the inside of your brain. And so, depending on what it is your real goals are in the world, you know, what you really want to get done or what you're leaning toward, realizing that your mind is doing the thing against which you're trying to do, that was a weird sentence. Once you stop and realize, wait a second, I just shut off that whole thing. Like, I'm trying to think of some examples of when you just, can you help me out here? Like where thinking that you know something already, or thinking that you, that you're an expert, or you've heard about that, or you cuts you off from the opportunity to enrich your life with something. I'm just.
Well, I experience it that, and it doesn't happen very much, but I'll be talking to somebody and they'll be saying something and I'll come back with what I thought I was hearing, but I missed. And you can watch it in their body. They probably do this, saying that. Is that kind of what you're looking for?
There's just a million opportunities for this, but that's a good. Keep talking about that. So.
Well, so you read.
You think you heard what they
that
said.
You missed what they were really going for, and maybe you went in a direction that they weren't going.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you could see it. There's a certain kind of pulling back they do from you. It's very subtle, but it's observable. And at that point, you have to go, but I'm on the wrong track, aren't I?
Yeah.
Just go.
I missed that,
tell
didn't
me, I didn't get it. What were you really saying?
Yeah. So it's kind of that's a very subtle example of thinking that you knew or understood what the person was saying, and then finding out that you didn't, and then opening it back up for another interchange, and then reflecting back, and then then when you get an affirmation that that's right, then it opens something again.
Yeah,
right?
there's an observable energy there as well. If you get it right, or if you're close, then the energy level comes up,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll tell you more,
Mm-hmm.
and they're really sort of excited that you're getting them,
Mm-hmm.
and that we're tracking,
Mm-hmm.
and you can sense that if you're open and aware and kind of letting it all come in. It's observable, not just intuitively. There's actually visible clues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just thought of two really big arenas where I don't know is a good stance to have. The first one is obviously in the whole realm of oppression or prejudice. So we think we know who those people are. So stereotypes and things we know about different cultures and things we know about different peoples. And so our brains are kind of wired in that way to put people in categories. So I don't know all the neuroscience around this, so I can't really speak terribly competently about it. But one of the things we're wired with in our deep brain is the ability to recognize familiar and different. And so in the history of the human race and the kind of primitive ways that people used to behave, we're very, very sophisticated now, but that recognition that happens, similar, different. So different tribe, if you're from a different tribe, or if you're a different color, or you're not from around here, that kind of idea is programmed into the brain. And so it's a very primal way that we know or don't know. And so when we don't know, then they could be a threat. And so in the evolution of our species, human beings would be, because there was so much evidently conflict between people groups, then that whole idea of other and same was very, very simple and kind of binary. So as we have become more global and evolved over X number of thousands of years, we are intermingling with different, we're not isolated anymore. But we still have the brains that that the human race had from thousands of years ago. That's one of the last things that is evolving, or hopefully beginning to evolve. And we can feel it in ourselves. And there's lots and lots of studies out there, the psychological impact of, prejudice, basically. And even to the point of, they do these psychological studies with college students, but these different little vignettes, so they'll give a vignette about a person, and then you're supposed to make all kinds of judgments about this person just based on what you read. And then they change the gender. And then not with the same people, but, so this is a woman with this group of people. This vignette is about a man with this group of people. And then you read all of the different judgments or assumptions that got made about these people in these two different groups, and they're completely different.
Or they'll take the same face with two different vignettes, one like me and one not like me.
Yeah.
And repeating the face
Yes.
later, it's all about what you read.
Yep.
And so the same face could be like me or not like me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the other thing is that happens in employment a lot, resumes and things. So if you have a Sharon and a Latoya that are applying for the same job, it signals, what white mother names her daughter Latoya, usually doesn't happen. And it hits that center of the brain, that not like me, not like me. And so people of color, a lot of times have trouble, even if there's no picture, but just the name, Keyshawn, Latoya. You can give me all of these names that we find in the African American community, and there have been studies that have shown that if you leak any ethnicity, if you leak any kind of thing, even in written material, then you're probably not going to get the job, or you're going to have to work a lot harder for that job. Same thing with auditions for major orchestras. I read this in the book, I think it was Blink. Did you? It's a really fascinating book, Blink, but he spends a whole half a chapter, I think, talking about how because the professional music world, there just aren't as many opportunities for musicians to have steady jobs. There are thousands of qualified, skilled musicians at a really high level who are trying to get into orchestras across the country. And so auditioning for these things is really, really tricky. So now what they do for an audition, sometimes it's on a stage, but they'll put a screen. You audition behind the screen, and you don't wear your shoes. So you walk across the stage in your stocking feet, and you sit down and you play your audition piece so that no one knows whether you're a man or a woman, or a person of color, or a white person, an old person, or a young person.
Or a fat person.
Or a fat person or a thin person. Because so much of that has been done. So I just thought that was really extreme, but it really shows the way our minds are prejudiced in this I know way, even though that's not very conscious. No one is sitting there. So like, for example, a woman playing the French horn. French horn, if you know anything about that, takes a lot of air and a lot of breath support. And so if you are, if you're 5'3" and you're 22, 27 years old, let's say, then you could walk across the stage, sit down, play the French horn, and they're already knowing that you're too little. Like you don't have the breath support, that you don't have the capacity to play the French horn in this orchestra, even though they might. But you've already made judgments. You're already in the I know, not the I don't know category. So all of these prejudices, stereotypes, judgments that are pre-made that we carry with us are in the I know category. And if you already know, then it shuts down a whole like domain, lots of domains of learning, possible learnings, and just in general possibilities if we think we know. And I understand why that happens, because we're just drowning in information. We have opportunities to learn all kinds of stuff, and it's overwhelming. But in our personal lives, to think about that idea of, I don't know, maybe I don't know here, or maybe I don't know here, is a really powerful way in which it opens the cognitive field rather than closing the cognitive field. It opens possibilities rather than shutting down possibilities. And so in this way, the declaration of I don't know is really powerful, right? What was the other one? I had another one that was really good. Oh, mindfulness. So the practice of mindfulness is basically the idea that I don't know, I don't have to know, I'm not going to know. You know, all I'm doing is observing.
Knowing's not important.
Yeah, knowing is not important. And so, or knowing cognitively is not important. Making judgments is not important. So we're knowing in different ways. So maybe we're knowing the visual that we're having, you know, light, shapes, color. That's a kind of knowing, but it's not a judgment. It's an observation. And so sound, you know, all the different physical things that we do with mindfulness, just trying to be present, or just making an observation and just seeing how it plays out. That's basically the stance of, I don't know, I don't have to know, I'm not here to know, I'm here to take it in. And so that's why mindfulness is so powerful, because it shuts down the knowing mind and the restricting mind and the categorizing mind and the working mind. It shuts it down so that all it's doing is observing. So it's free then for all kinds of things or nothing, which is usually the most important, the thing that we need the most when we're practicing mindfulness, is a rest, giving the mind a rest. So basically mindfulness is in this I don't know stage, and I don't have to know. I don't even want to know. You know, so it clears the cognitive field, and then not necessarily for anything more to be fed to you, but just clearing it and opening it. And that's why, it's been shown that mindfulness practices are really powerful, like we're really needed to learn how to just step back and not know and not have to know, you know, not judge, not have to evaluate, okay? So I don't know. So I want to talk a little bit about I apologize and I forgive you. I apologize closes something. There's been a conflict or there's been something that's happened. And to come back to the conversation and say I apologize, it closes the conflict, or it closes the wound, it closes the ground on which, at least for one of us, if I come up and say I apologize, that's me saying I want to end this. I did wrong. I own what I did. And I apologize is also an offer. I offer you an apology, a validation, that I did wrong. And of course, then it opens, if you're closing down a conflict, then it opens another possibility for forgiveness or for restarting or for starting over, whatever. So what's the difference between I'm sorry and I apologize? Is there?
I think I'm sorry could be internal, whereas I apologize seems more relational.
Okay. One is more internal, the other more relational.
There's more culpability, it seems. say, I'm sorry, there's usually a period. If you say, I apologize, there's an opening, as it were, for more.
I'm just asking the question. I'm not sure that I have the answer, but as we're talking about it, because I'm sorry bothers me.
I'm sorry doesn't always mean that I recognize my part of this. You could be having a shitty day and oh gosh, Phyllis, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, it's
yeah.
like, and it's like, well, I didn't have anything to do with that, but you know.
Yeah.
But I apologize means that maybe I had something
Yeah,
to do
yeah.
with this piece.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes more responsibility. I'm sorry, like literally. I think a lot of people mean I apologize when they say I'm sorry. But it's not as powerful a speech act as I apologize. To say I'm sorry is just declaring how you feel. I'm sorry. I feel sorry. I feel sad. I have regret.
And it's misused, like, I'm sorry your dad's in the hospital. So
Yeah.
It's, I mean, it's a nice thing we say, but it doesn't really make sense.
Well, and what you said, sorry is an emotion.
Yeah.
You
Sorry
know,
is an emotion.
I apologize has a verbal kind of notion to it. Like,
Yeah, it's almost illegal. Yeah, I apologize basically says I'm taking responsibility for what I did, and I'm expressing my regret and the fact and validating the fact that, you know, I had a part in this. So to say I apologize or I apologize for is even better. It's a powerful speech act to say I apologize for being 15 minutes late for our coffee date. You're just saying it out loud. It's a more powerful interaction, more powerful speech act that that kind of closes whatever. So if I'm supposed to meet you and I'm 15 minutes late and I show up and don't say anything, I mean, if it's me, if I'm sitting waiting for somebody for coffee and they're 15 minutes late and they don't tell me, then something is going out there. I'm having something going on. I might be worried. I might be angry. I might be wondering what the heck is going on. So that's all energy that I'm creating while I'm sitting there waiting. And if they show up and sit down without acknowledging anything, which hardly ever happens, or I wouldn't be having coffee with them, but if they just sit down, then I'm still doing this. And I'm waiting for something to come back. That's why we say an apology closes. It closes this kind of stirred up energy or this undone thing between us.
It puts it to rest.
Yeah, it just puts it to rest. Yeah, I'm sorry or I apologize is like, yeah, and especially if you say I'm sorry, I apologize for being late. There was a train. I got sat behind this train on McIntyre at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, where they seem to just go back and forth like this through the intersection. I got stuck there 3 times in the last 3 months, where I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, here's a train. It'll be gone in 2 minutes. And so they go this way really slow. Then they back up and they go this way really slowly. And then they go back this way. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? And I still can't figure it out. So anyway, what?
They're hooking up cars.
Well,
On the Y track.
I guess so, but I can't, who counts the cars? And they just look like they're going back and forth. Anyway, I don't know why I was talking about that.
Well, you talk about apologies closing something, so when you wind up being late.
Yeah, then, I apologize for being late, and then you offer an explanation, whatever. Now let's talk about I forgive you. I'm allergic, well, I have some traumatic memory around this, and I wonder if I'm alone in that. Has anybody ever been beaten over the head with forgiveness, the idea of forgiveness? That what was the message you got? I don't know why in our years of being in the church, forgiveness was just a huge issue. Not not my own forgiveness. That was easy. Everybody wanted forgiveness, for being a sinner or for, doing wrong. But forgiving other people just seemed to be a huge deal. It seemed like every year at least we were listening to somebody talk. The whole idea of forgive, you better forgive, you better forgive. I'll never forget, I could probably almost recite this one sermon we heard about forgiveness, using the Lord's Prayer. So, forgive us our sins as we forgive those who forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. So I think that that nice little phrase there is actually a good idea. We want to be forgiven the same way we forgive other people, or we want to forgive other people the same way that we're forgiven. That just seems like a very nice little thing. But for some reason, the folks we hung around with, somebody finally said, yeah, well, let me tell you a little something about forgiveness. If you don't, he won't. Yeah, so if you don't forgive, then God's not going to forgive you. It's right there. Forgive others as you want God to forgive you. How to forget, however that goes. So it became this club. So then it would sort of hang over your head with this threat that if you want to be forgiven from God, that you better be forgiving everybody. And if you don't forgive everybody all the time, then God's just withholding his forgiveness to you, waiting for you to do it. I'm going to start tapping. So maybe I'm just like doing a therapeutic moment here only for myself. But forgiveness is a very tricky exchange. And so there's a difference between I forgive you and then the whole process of forgiveness. And so, I don't know. Do you want to talk about it? Forgiveness? What do you want to say? What bothers me lately? It seems like there are people from my tribe, my old tribe, that I don't know personally, but you'll get this in the media a lot. Some horrendous thing has happened. And then the next day or 2 days later or at the trial or something, you've got victims with this big gesture. I forgive you. Mm-hmm. We forgive you. We want to forgive you. I forgive you. And something really, really bothers me, because how can you have someone murdered and then 3 days later forgive the person who murdered your person? Like how is that actual forgiveness? How could that actually be? That's one of the things that bugs me.
Or I'll forgive you, but I'm not going to forget.
Yeah, like I forgive you, but I don't forget. I mean, I think I think that's true, actually. Forgiveness means, we've ended this. There's this, let me just see if I can find this. What does forgiveness mean? Basically, according to this person, who is Chalmers Brothers, in the book Language and the Pursuit of Happiness. But his kind of definition of forgiveness, what you're saying when you say I forgive you is, what you've done to me caused me harm and damaged my possibilities. I do not condone this, and I do not give you permission to do it again. I choose to forgive you, to let go of these conversations. I will now focus my attention and my awareness in other areas rather than continue to live in these conversations about you and about what you did. I choose to move forward with my life. I revoke my promise to somehow, some way get you back. I choose to move into peace and out of resentment. So, does that make sense? I mean, when you say I forgive you, but I forgive, but I'm not going to forget, is true in a way, but saying in that way means something's not free inside you. So you're intending to forgive, you're wanting to move on, you're, you know, you're saying I'm letting you off the hook basically, but you're still holding something. And so that's why it feels disingenuous.
I was thinking about how when we're sort of, in a way, beaten up to forgive, that we often do it in a way where we're all focused on what was done to us and focused on how we can let that go, and we're drilling down on it, and it becomes this sort of almost obsessive thing about how we have to forgive because we know God won't, and so on. And I was talking to my therapist, not you, Judy, about how I was having trouble forgiving my brother for what he did to me this year or last year, and she goes, "I don't think you should." And I was like, "What? I don't think you should forgive him." Okay, maybe I won't. Let's try that on. So I just tried that on, and it was kind of amazing. Within days, I just wasn't even worried about it anymore. It was like, just by going, maybe I shouldn't forgive him, it just opened me to a place where I could just let it go.
So then you could forgive him. Yeah.
Which was
Yeah.
really paradoxical.
Yeah.
I think a paradoxical intention on her part. But I don't know. Maybe she doesn't even believe in forgiveness anymore. I don't know. But definitely it sort of freed me up to just kind of go, I don't need to wrestle with it. I don't need to make this a deal. I can just stop thinking about it.
Are you want to say something, Shannon?
Yeah, I was thinking about, which I think, what would it look like if more people can say that and just let us all off the hook?
Yeah.
But I think I was thinking about, because I think about, I forgive you in the context of like my own family, but then I think about how many conversations I've had with ministry people, and they sit at my table and we're all like, "Bleh, I'm so tired of this forgiveness talk. It's just so, it is." I think my trauma around it, little t trauma, is that it denies emotion.
Yeah.
So you forgive, and therefore you can get over that you were hurt, that you were mad, and that, you know, we don't have to, if you forgive, then you can just be released from the fact that it cut you wide open. And I think that's why we don't forget. But I think about, so I was thinking about contexts where, like my stepmom, I feel free to go live whatever life you have. I don't need you in my life. But I think the context that I have been told in my Christian culture anyway is, if you forgive, then there's also opportunity for reconciliation.
Mm-hmm.
But it denies emotion of,
Mm-hmm.
what if I just don't need to right now? What if I need to sit in the fact that I just feel hurt and mad and really disappointed? But I think the notion of forgiveness denies every piece of emotion that we're also taught is unhealthy
Yeah.
and not godly. And
Yeah.
fill in the blank.
Yeah.
So that's my trauma around forgiveness.
Oh, yeah. It's
And
just,
that makes me angry.
yeah.
And the thing is, with my brother, it was keeping me connected to him by thinking that I needed to somehow offer some kind of forgiveness energy to him. And number one, he doesn't care. He would never even want to talk to me about me forgiving him. And so I'm having this whole struggle alone. And maybe I just need to let it go and just not even think about it. It's like, if I hate him for the rest of my life, he's out of my life. He's never coming back, as far as I can tell. Yeah. So anyway.
We had this thing with it when our kids were little. You know, you teach them
Oh,
how to
yeah.
say thank you, say you're sorry, go ask them for,
Yeah.
ask them for forgiveness. So they would just, rotely repeat it, and we thought, through repetition and stuff, they would begin to feel this. And so as we got older, and they'd say, "Do you forgive me?" It was like, "No, I don't forgive you," because it hasn't been enough time to even think and process what that, and it didn't feel like they were sorry.
Yeah.
So we created this like weird thing, and thinking we were modeling something, but as they got, a little older, and especially my daughter, she'd say, "Do you forgive me?" Because she needed that. And it was kind of like, no, because you're not even sorry. I mean, that's what I was saying in my head.
Right.
Because I hadn't sat with it, she hadn't sat
Yeah.
with it. It was just this repeating this cultural conversation after something's awkward.
Yeah. Well, and then it ends up being like the opposite of actual forgiveness. So your speech is not impeccable. It's like the opposite. So basically you're saying, I'm going to say I forgive you because I'm scared God's going to be pissed at me. Or I'm afraid that I'm going to end up being bitter and then God would be pissed at me. Or I'm destroying myself somehow, and we can't really have this honest conversation about how you hurt me or what you did wrong. And I don't even think you know what you did wrong anyway, but I'm just have to say I forgive you in order to bypass all that a spiritual process. So conflict and forgiveness is a spiritual practice and a spiritual process. And if you just like try to jump over the chasm by saying I forgive you, then you're lying. You're lying to yourself most of all, and you're lying to the other person, and you're setting something up in the future perhaps if they take you seriously, like, you know, I forgive you, then they're off the hook, then they get to go do whatever again, and you might be setting yourself up for being abused again or hurt again or whatever.
And what I see working with couples a lot is that one or the other of them is very eager to say I'm sorry very early in the communication process. So like, say person A is upset about something and they start to talk about it, and person B is like, oh, I'm so sorry. And it's really not about that they're sorry, they just they don't have the distress tolerance to take the confrontation and explore what the other person experienced and what they were feeling and so on. So I'm sorry becomes a close,
Yep.
but it's more like a push away.
Yeah. Well, I think I apologize is a closing down. It's a shutting down. It's closing the conflict to say I apologize. But if the other person is not, you know, you're wanting to close it down. But if the other person is not ready to forgive, then you're trying to cut them off from a process that they may need to be going through, or vice versa. That's why it just is so annoying when someone says, I'm sorry. They're not really apologizing. They're saying, I'm really anxious and regretful because I see that you're hurt and I want to be let off the hook. So I'm sorry. And yeah, I don't want to hear your stuff because it's gonna make me feel more anxious and more regretful and more guilty and more full of shame.
It seems like saying I'm sorry is about me and
Yes.
trying to shut down. I apologize seems more relational. It seems like I forgive you feels like it's more like I just want to be. I'm trying to. It feels more about. It almost feels more like that I'm sorry thing. I forgive you. Forgiveness to me is more about me and about me going through a process of being able to come to peace with whatever that was, which may or may not involve you ever being in my life again, but it's about me resolving that hurt, resolving the feelings, getting to a healthy place with what took place. So I forgive you feels like I'm trying to say something that is more about you, where forgiveness is really more about me getting right in here.
Oh,
Because
forgiveness,
I
saying I
forgive
forgive you
feels like feel like me saying yes when I really mean no.
Oh, okay. Yeah, unless you're fully ready, unless you fully forgive them.
When I'm fully ready, I don't have to say I forgive you. It's like I have, you know.
That's really interesting.
It's like what's the point? I mean,
Yeah.
it's really about the process I've gone through, and I'm letting this go because I'm not going to continue to beat myself up over something that you did that, you know,
Yeah.
that I'm just releasing it. You know,
It can
'cause
freak out the other person too when you show up with forgiveness and it's been 3 weeks and they're like, "What did I do?" They're kind of weirded out.
Yeah.
Because they didn't even know.
Yeah. So I don't know if all of that made sense, but there's
Well,
something
it's
about
we're
I forgive
talking
you
about-
that
yeah.
feels feels like I'm trying it feels like I'm not being impeccable with my word. It feels like me trying to say something to let you off the hook where I am, forgiveness is really about me.
Well, I think those two declarations, if they're working in a, you know, in a really healthy sort of way, and there's been a conflict between two people who value each other honestly, then then for one person to come and say, I did this, I did this, I did this, and I see that it did this, this, and this to you, and I want you to know that I apologize. That was not okay. I'm taking responsibility for what I did. Then the other person, if they've been through, if they've been working on their own thing, and they can come up to the line. So it's sort of like this exchange has, the conflict or the problem has like put a line in the relationship. It's divided two people. And so the apologizer comes up to the line and says, I'm just here to offer my apology. I did wrong. It caused harm. I am owning that, and I'm offering you an apology. And then the person on the other side of the line, who is the wounded party or whatever, they come up to the line, they hear the apology, and sometimes in a like a healthy exchange, if that's a clear and honest and heartfelt apology for the right reasons, it can enable forgiveness to happen. And so then they can say, perhaps, because they've been aware of what's been going on and they've been going through this process of what did it cost me? Why am I upset? What did it hit inside of me? How have I been damaged by this? And then you come up to the line, and the apologizer is the one that's making it's just making a declaration. I see that I did wrong, and I'm offering you an apology. It's like and then they're saying, depending on what the apologizer, what they perceive in the apologizer's demeanor, it may enable them to say, then, I forgive you. But when does that happen? And it doesn't happen very often, and it's hard for it to happen with impeccability, with honesty and, realness. But when that happens, it's a powerful exchange. And that's what we're trying to talk about with speech acts. They're powerful exchanges that actually reopen the field between two people, if it works that way. So, but with forgiveness, just on what you're talking about, the process of forgiveness, a lot of us have these things that we hold against other people for lots of really good reasons. And we're suffering from the reasons. Usually it's done damage of some kind. And so what you were talking about with the forgiveness process is we have to do this kind of spiritual and soul-searching process of, what did that cause me? Who is responsible for that? What's the truth about it inside me? And can I let this go? I think that forgiveness is inside of us. The process of forgiveness is of letting go, of being in the conversation with the person, whether they're there or not. Basically, that's why he uses that language of conversation. After we left our last church, I just was so angry, and so angry for all these kinds of reasons. And it probably took years, which I was continuing to have these conversations with myself and with other people about why. Remember when he did that, and how he said, God, that was so, and he used to do this all the time, and he would say these things, and he would do, and all these conversations I was having with other people and with myself in the process of trying to work it out. So I'm in this spiritual process where I'm thrashing around. And so years later, it took a long time. I thrashed for a long, long time. And it wasn't just about that person. In fact, it was so little about that person. It was mostly about what that person represented, which was a lot deeper of a conflict inside myself. But I remember one day when I was on the other side, like completely outside of the bubble, and I was like, if he hadn't have been like that, I wouldn't be here. like I'd still be in there. I'd still be trying to make it work. I'd still be like, my life would still be shut down. I'd still be, in the machine. And now I'm out here. And I remember feeling grateful. I'm really grateful that he is who he is, and he continues to be who he is. And I'm not grateful that he's doing, continues to do to other people, but that's not my thing, And I felt this forgiveness happen. In fact, gratitude. That if it wasn't for you seeing it like this, doing it like that, and using me in this way, then I would still be, I'd still be small. I'd still be in there. And now I'm outside. And I don't know what else would have got me out of it if it hadn't been for you. So I really felt it happen in this moment, which is the process of forgiveness that you're talking about. Is something internal that actually is happening, letting it go. So, and do you think I'm going to make an appointment, go back and say, hey, I forgive you?
Yeah.
Oh, hell no, because that opens up a whole new conversation and a new opportunity. Because if the person does not apologize and does not own, then you don't have an exchange. You're just opening up another conversation, which is more than likely going to have another, another opportunity for forgiveness. So when I coach people in the deconstruction process or in the spiritual abuse process, I find a lot of people who have been taught, like we were taught, that you need to end well, you need to do these things well, you need to make your declaration, you need to tell the truth, and you need to try to make it right. Like, don't leave with a relationship broken. And often, what good-hearted people want to do is write a letter or meet with the elders. So my cardinal rule is never, 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 never meet with the elders. There might be exceptions to that rule, but usually, yeah, just don't.
If you're the head elder, it might work out.
It might work. I don't know. I've even had people who were pretty high on the elder list trying to meet with the elders or being called into a meeting with the elders. That's even worse.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't go. I'd turn back if I were you, because systems just don't, they just can't tolerate authenticity and someone rocking the boat and that kind of thing. That's just the nature of systems. But anyway, if you're taught that you need to take all responsibility for yourself, but you're going up against a system who is not coming to the table in an equal way, then do your forgiveness process over here. And when you're through with the process, there's no need. So I apologize, I forgive you in tandem only happens when there's real authentic relationship and the intention to make repairs. And if there's not an intention there, then you don't need to jump through that hoop and make that declaration in their hearing. You're just trying to get it clear. So we can do that forgiveness thing symbolically, and it can still be really, really powerful. Okay, so we didn't get through all of them. I love you is an opening, and this is not working. I might we've talked some about breakdowns and how breakdowns are closings and openings at the same time. I might do that next time. But I just want to end with the declaration I am, because I think this is a declaration we make all the time. I am is a declaration we're always making. And it's usually in the evaluation category. It's in the speech act of evaluation. So it's really it's powerful on either side of the equation. So I suggest that we start trying to increase your awareness of all the ways that I say I am to myself, either specifically, overtly, or covertly. I'm so stupid. I'm so lazy, I'm so happy, I'm so this, I'm so that, I'm so this, I'm so that. The phrase I am usually opens to some kind of evaluation. And again, I am is entering the cognitive field in some way, depending on what's I am what on the other on the other side. So if we continue to say I'm good at this or I'm not good at that, or I am this kind of person or that kind of person, we're like constricting the field, and we're moving ourselves into judgments or assessments that we sometimes don't make the difference between an assessment and an assertion, right? So I'm 5'10" is an assertion that is verifiable. I'm this gigantic human being. That's an assessment. That if I am not, that has a certain connotations to it. And so then, if I'm too big for certain things, then it's going to shut me off to other things. So we make this. We're always asking ourselves in one way or another, verbally or non-verbally, what am I? Who am I? Am I this? Am I that? Am I okay? Am I not okay? So I just want to leave you with that I am statement, and just realize every time we say it. So notice when you're saying it or you're thinking it, and then tell yourself I'm making a judgment, usually. Unless you're just saying I am. Which the declaration I am, basically, if we can clear everything off and don't have to put something at the end of that statement and just say I am. It says I'm all of who I am, and I am only me, and I am here. You're not making apologies, you're not making judgments, you're owning who you are, whatever it is, and you don't have to know. It's a thing. I don't have to know who I am. I don't have to evaluate who I am. I don't have to convince people of who I am. If I just am, there's something about possessing myself in a non-judgmental way that is extremely powerful. When you're letting go of all of the judgments about yourself and you're just showing up, and you're kind of saying to yourself, that's enough. It's enough that I am. It's just a powerful statement, and it's both the result of an internal kind of process and the beginning of another kind of process. So, like, I'm just here. I just am. And it implies that I don't know, what you see is what you get, or who I am is enough, or I don't have to be more than I am. I just am. So, anyway, that's it on declarations, and who knows whether we'll visit it or not. So,
I can share that I made a declaration. I didn't realize that that's what I was doing a few months ago.
yeah.
I've been in a place of just feeling like the work I'm doing is not meaningful to me,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm ready to step away from that. But I've been saying that for some time, and
Yeah.
nothing's changing.
Yeah.
And I finally got to the place was, okay, by the end of 2018, I will no longer be working full-time for Shepherd any longer. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know how that was going to work, but this was important for me to just be clear about that with myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as a result of that, I felt more energy on trying to work on what would that look like. I felt like things started coming to me that were informative about that, and it's been impactful just making that declaration. And like I said, I didn't even realize that that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
I was.
Yeah.
To me, it was setting an intention.
Yeah.
And
Well,
and then
it
letting
is that.
unfold. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's been very impactful having done that.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great
I still don't know
illustration.
what that's going to look like, but I'm also okay not knowing.
Yeah. Well, what you're doing is you're shutting down, you're closing something, and you're opening something else.
Yeah.
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 And you did that with your intention first, and then your declaration is like one of the implementing steps of the the knowing that you had. So, great illustration.